Hey guys, red and black greetings. This is Flamengo. Welcome to the Paparazzo Rubro Negro channel. We're recording here right after the Placar Aberto show, a program we take part in on Placar, bringing you the main Flamengo news. For those of you who followed us on Placar, man, so we had an important situation to bring to you. Because there's a narrative coming from the São Paulo media and they're trying to attack Flamengo's influencers, to attack Flamengo, to attack Felipe Luiz. The São Paulo media has declared war on Felipe Luiz, okay? Palmeiras has declared war on Felipe Luiz. What I heard from a Palmeiras advisor I know is that Felipe Luiz will never coach Palmeiras. I said, thank God, because he's going to be one of the best coaches in the world. And that little threat of yours to them, that doesn't mean anything, okay? For us then, I'm even happier to know that you never want Felipe Luiz there, because you started to hate Felipe Luiz because of the statement he made. So, a little threat to me, a Palmeiras advisor coming to tell me, right? And I even get along with the guy, but saying, look, the word here at Palmeiras is that Felipe will never coach Verdão. I said, all right, then it's better for him, man. Better for Felipe, okay? Felipe Luiz will never coach Palmeiras. They were upset by his claim that Palmeiras is the only team that can't complain about refereeing. Palmeiras has no reason to complain about the refereeing. What, did he lie? He told the truth, man. He told the truth. Why didn't they like it? They felt it, right? Galvo, be honest. You felt it? Yeah, you guys felt it. That's the plain truth, right? And then Andre Rizek, we have our previous live where I brought up everything that Andre Rizek said, right? About influencers putting pressure. He threw it on us, right? He's from traditional media, right? Which doesn't have as much audience as independent media nowadays. And trying to act like we were the ones putting pressure, as if Palmeiras, Leila hadn't caused all this mess since the whole Libra thing. The ones who have been putting pressure on the system for a long time are Abel and his crew. Anderson Barros, after the game, went there to say that Flamengo complained about the refereeing, that they weren't going to complain, even though Palmeiras was harmed. So he complains. He uses Flamengo's complaint to complain about the refereeing, thinking he's clever. And you defend that, right? He comes and says that the help Palmeiras got in the game against São Paulo has been paid back. You had the nerve, Rizek. You had the nerve to say that the help Palmeiras got against São Paulo was paid back yesterday. Are you crazy, man? As if there was anything to be paid back, to be returned. Man, that's absurd. Flamengo got robbed in the Libertadores, and then they lifted Plata's suspension. Do you think that made up for it? Flamengo nearly lost, and the match went to penalties. Their goal wasn't given back. The 15 points Palmeiras got there with referee mistakes. Aren't you going to talk about that, man? In the exact same play, you didn't call a penalty on Pulgar. Sorry, it wasn't on Pulgar. It was in the game against Fortaleza. It was another player, but Lutero committed a penalty. So, if that was a penalty, it was a penalty for Flamengo too. Fortaleza and Flamengo, Lutero on the Flamengo player pushing in 2024. You guys didn't say anything. Bayern's goal should have been disallowed in the Club World Cup. It should have been disallowed because that's called a penaltito in Europe, which you don't call, you shouldn't call, a little penalty that you shouldn't call. They don't call that penalty in Europe. Jorginho, who played there for years, probably thinks it's rarely called. Now, for you to say that, no, you're contradicting yourself, and I'll mention it here. You kept saying a bunch of things as if it was an outrageous penalty, as if it was a huge mistake that's already been paid for. Palmeiras has already paid for its mistake this round. Trying to put pressure on Flamengo. He's a Corinthians fan, switching sides, cheering for Palmeiras, defending Palmeiras. I've never seen anything like this in my life because to attack Flamengo. Flamengo, you guys get so crazy with the influences and with Flamengo that you want to attack Flamengo. And for that, you even defend your biggest rival. Yeah, I wrote here, and he replied to me. Rizek replied to me, dear Rizek, you from the São Paulo media disgust me. A Corinthians fan becomes a Palmeiras fan and vice versa. Check out how much nonsense this guy says, even trying to criticize Filipe Luiz for telling the truth. Apparently, shouting didn't bother them. Shouting didn't bother them. what we created there. There were even Flamengo fans complaining that they didn't understand it was actually to try to break down their narrative. From São Paulo and Leila, they even put Andres Pereira to give an interview on the national news. Did they put Jorginho to speak today on the national news? Did anyone record it? Did anyone bring me Jorginho on the national news? Yeah, it's only when it's against Flamengo. Okay, so Binho just sent this here. Flamengo has always been hated by these people. It's not just today. That's why I root against the Brazilian national team. If they keep messing with Flamengo like this, I want Brazil to lose in every sport. Look, everyone is just marking him. It's been a while since I could listen for more than 10 seconds. A lack of common sense and the minimum reasoning that your profession requires. The young man who began at Placar magazine ended up co-opted, a sad fate. He also worked with me at IG briefly. Okay, he replied. Now, before I bring his answer here, Paulo Cesar Oliveira changed his mind because he said it wasn't a penalty by Lucero on the Flamengo player in the play at Maracanã against Fortaleza. And now, in the same play, does he say it's a penalty, that he didn't call the penalty because of public pressure and everything else, right? Because of recent mistakes, okay? So people are upset with Andre Rizek. And look, we're also going to talk about Leo Ortiz and some other situations. We have Flamengo's training. We have Rossi. Look here. Let me show you. Check this out. Jorginho for Flamengo. 12 games, 11 as a starter, 1 goal, 2 assists, 973 actions with the ball. That's in the Brasileirão, right? 13 key passes, 91% pass accuracy, 73 recoveries, 17 tackles, 20 interceptions, a 7.22 SofaScore rating. Okay, we need to mention this before I forget. The Brazilian Football Confederation saw the refereeing as solid in Flamengo 3, Palmeiras 2, and considers the complaints as club bias boiling in the blood. Palmeiras' main complaint is about the penalty on Gustavo Gomes. Brazilian Football Confederation thinks if the penalty was given, the other side would complain instead. A Brazilian Football Confederation source says referees are told to award penalties only for clear actual fouls, not just theoretical arguments. We've seen how strong some people's club loyalty can be. Brazilian Football Confederation is crushing Palmeiras. Finally, the Brazilian Football Confederation is actually doing something. People will say we're being cynical, but come on. If you call that a penalty, you have to call 10 per game, right? The Brazilian Football Confederation, like people say in Spain, that's a penalty though, isn't it? Little penalty. The Brazilian Football Confederation also believes that the current complaints are only meant to discredit the refereeing. Not that either, right? Even less, right? Brazilian Football Confederation. Even less, since you're just trying to excuse these absurd referee decisions, right? Hilton Pereira Santo Pai's performance in Flamengo's 3-2 win over Palmeiras was solid and largely error-free, okay? Then we also had Mauro Cesar Pereira speaking. In Brazil, that might be a penalty, but nowhere else is it called one. Come on, man. The truth is, the real traditional media is now here on YouTube with you, and it pays better than the old media. It's because people consume more. That's what it is, right? Those people from the old traditional media are desperate. Their narrative is broken all the time, and they can't sustain a narrative like we can. So we destroy them, right? The Brazilian Football Confederation, man, we can fight back against the Brazilian Football Confederation. They can't. They just got destroyed by the Brazilian Football Confederation, for example. I come here to criticize the Brazilian Football Confederation, and they can't defend themselves. Now, anyone can push back. Their narrative is empty. That's the truth. And they're always trying to go after Flamengo. The intention is to go after Flamengo. Yeah. Hey, look. Oh, Bruno De Lohan sent this here. Yeah. It's worth mentioning that the referee kept the same criteria throughout the whole game. No foul on Arrascaeta. Just like it happened in the last Club World Cup when the Bayern player pushed Pulga with both arms and he scored an own goal because of that. Yeah, and he could have called it, right? Andre Rizek replied, my friend, he said at the end yesterday and again on today's show that by English refereeing standards, maybe it wouldn't even be controversial there. But that's not what happened. The referee on the field evaluated it, okay? Yeah. The video assistant referee audio showed the video referee chose not to call, believing there was no impact. The same referee saw impact in Kaká's penalty, Bruno Henriquez, and Flu's disallowed goal against Mirassol. That's not right. There's a real lack of consistency and standards in the way things work in Brazil. But just like I never thought Palmeiras was leading because of the refereeing, I also don't think yesterday's win was because of that. Defending Palmeiras, right? That they weren't leading because of refereeing, okay? I'm just pointing out the inconsistency and cynicism of those who only make a fuss when the mistakes are against their own team. Yeah, all right, my friend. And you don't do that when it's against São Paulo teams. You defend them tooth and nail. It's a Corinthians fan defending a Palmeiras fan. I'm really impressed, you know? That's wild. Sadly, Felipe Luiz is now among the regulars. Take care. He's upset and criticizing Felipe Luiz for saying that Palmeiras was the only one who couldn't complain, right? Palmeiras isn't. It's not that if there's one team that can't complain about refereeing, it's Palmeiras. And Felipe Luiz is absolutely right. Felipe totally owned all of you, and you're upset because you defend Palmeiras and Palmeiras tooth and nail. And then when the narrative doesn't please you, you start saying it's because of influencers and all that, right? The English refereeing media and whatever else. Oh, man, that's nothing. That doesn't stick, man. That doesn't stick. You're just playing to the crowd and adding pressure. Look at my reply. Do you recall the Flamengo press and influencers discussing the 7 incidents and Pulgar's foul during Bayern's first goal at the Club World Cup? It's a situation that many referees don't call and video assistant referee doesn't review. Flamengo used this game against Bahia as an example, as well as the previous one against Fortaleza. Lucero committed the foul. The issue is that it's either a clear penalty or debatable, and many times it's not called in Flamengo's favor. Focus less on media, club, and influencer pressure and more on Luiz Araujo, Arrascaeta, Petro, and others' performances. Big hug, and I'll say more. Discuss the 15 points awarded to Palmeiras due to referee errors. It's that simple, okay? So, man, my brother really got on my nerves in that situation. Then these guys are being hypocritical, you know, acting like Palmeiras was the one who got screwed over with everything that happened. It's shameful, isn't it? So, we're bringing it here, man. Look at this. By the way, I'm going to bring up what Thiago Asmar said here. He did a collab with me here, Pilhado, Thiago Asmar. It's important for us to talk about this here because the truth needs to be told before we bring the information about Leo Ortiz. Look at this. Yeah. Come on, look here, Thiago Asmar, okay? Awkward. Look.
Well, guys, it's awkward when these two guys here, who have no engagement at all on social media, one is one of the main presenters on Sport TV and doesn't even have 250,000 followers. To see how much the guy lacks charisma, how much he has no engagement. The other one, poor guy, nobody even knows who he is anymore, and he really tries to get some engagement, both of them, by talking about Flamengo. Guys, it's embarrassing that Andre Rizek guy saying that the pressure, saying that Palmeiras was being favored, worked. Then that Juca Kifri guy saying that Palmeiras, right? Flamengo was pushed to victory by the refereeing. There are two guys who only ever had an audience because they're part of a clique that gets jobs on television. If it depended on their social media, they're nothing. If you look at each one's engagement, the number of followers each has is even embarrassing.
Look at that, huh?
And then they need to resort to that. They need to use Flamengo. Why? To stir up anger, right? From a fan base that has 45 million people. And since they don't care about being liked, which they aren't by most of the public, they try somehow to gain notoriety, to get attention on social media. Why? On television, they hire according to ideology, so they'll always be employed somewhere. But not even on television do they have an audience anymore, so they have to try on social media. I swear it's ridiculous and embarrassing. They're trying to say something about Flamengo to get some visibility, and they're managing to do it because they're really messing with something that's huge. And then people share it with anger and indignation because of what they say. And then they start to get recognized in some way on social media, which they never are. It's embarrassing.
Then, Thiago Asmar venting there about to Andre Rizek and Juca Kifri. But it's really embarrassing, right? This persecution against Flamengo, this desire to show off because, like I said, the audience is here on our side. It's the urge to show off at any cost, okay? And now it's time for us to talk about crying, right? We're going to talk about Leo Ortiz, talk about the Palmeiras fans crying, stop everything, breaking news. Palmeiras fans crying, recorded in the match report. After the Flamengo versus Palmeiras match, fullback Piqueres and assistant coach João Martins from São Paulo complained to referee Hilton Pereira Sampaio, who sent them both off. In the match report, the referee detailed the reasons for the expulsions. Hey, Leila, that's because you guys never used to complain, right? That's because you guys didn't complain, right? Piqueres went up to the referee, pointing his finger and said, "Are you kidding me? You just came here to rob us." After being sent off, the Uruguayan had to be restrained by the police, okay? He should get suspended for about 8 games for that. That's João Martins, the assistant coach. If he went up to the referee, it's because you guys don't complain, right, Leila? You said you don't complain, right? Yeah, you're always targeting Palmeiras and hurting us. After being sent off, the assistant asked, "Why did you send me off? I have to come here and complain." Palmeiras will be without Piqueres for Sunday's 8:30 post-Meridian match against Cruzeiro at Allianz Parque in the 30th round of the Brasileirão. Gabigol will score a goal. Who agrees? If you think Gabigol will score, comment below. Gabigol's goal against Cruzeiro. Look, the important information we have to bring here regarding Leo Ortiz, information brought by Angelo Furtado. We're following the news, and people are very worried. Everyone's worried about our captain, right? So we see here Leo Ortiz. The information about Leo Ortiz reporting back, information from Angelo Furtado. Then Vene confirmed it. And the Flamengo medical department is celebrating a huge celebration at Flamengo. There was concern he might have had something serious, okay? And the club will try to work with him to have him available for the second Libertadores match, okay? There's a chance he could still play in the second Copa Libertadores match, but he won't face Racing at Maracanã nor Fortaleza away, okay? So, the defender already underwent treatment in the morning this Monday at the Ninho do Urubu Training Center and continued his recovery at home in the afternoon. All right? So the player is already recovering, which is very important, right? We're glad to know that at least he'll be available for the next games. Already in the game against Racing in Argentina, tickets are sold out for the first leg between Flamengo and Racing at Maracanã, right? So, the Libertadores semifinal game, we already have sold out tickets. Flamengo already had them. And just so you have an idea, all sections. The last section to have tickets was the South. And once the South sold out, everything was gone. Flamengo and Racing will face each other at 9:30 on Wednesday. So we have a full house. It's going to be spectacular. Flamengo and Racing. Total pressure for us to get the result in this first match and secure a spot in the Libertadores final. Remember, Palmeiras is already exhausted and will play a tough high-altitude match, which could make them even more tired and risk dropping points. Cruzeiro is also performing well in the Brazilian League. Flamengo's win over Palmeiras was crucial. Let's take a look at a bit of Flamengo's training, right? And see what Rossi says, right? There are some images there. Let's follow Rossi and Mengo's training. Check it out. You're watching the footage. Look. Awesome. Let's go. Awesome. Awesome. And now we also have footage from the training to show you, look, Flamengo players there taking part in the training. See, we muted the audio because there's music, but it's that post-game day, right? It's a recovery session. The athletes, can you see them there? Nico de la Cruz, who didn't go. Viña as well, who didn't go to the game, wasn't included. But they could be included for the game against Racing. Strengthening the knee and similar exercises. The other players who played in the match, especially those in both halves, are doing recovery work. Varela, for me, I've always said he was my starter. But Royal is getting better, right? Royal has been improving, and we're following along. So images from the training with Bruno Henrique, also there, look, with the knee brace. So the players have reported back today. And it was even today that we had Leo Ortiz. Juninho, who hasn't been used and all that. Carrascal, who's out of the next Brazilian League game because he's suspended. Michael, who's been praised by Felipe, who seems to be doing better in training. And we know that the more players we have available, the better. At this moment, it's just Cebolinha and Leo Ortiz, right? Leo Ortiz, man. Yeah, I don't consider him to be in the medical department. He's already in a phase. The treatment will be quick. It was something more minor, but the only one we really have in the medical department is Cebolinha, with a problem in the lower back. Sorry, I mean the hip. And we're following Mango's training here. And man, the focus is already on the game against Racing. We've already gotten past Palmeiras. And Felipe, man, right? I'm really happy with Felipe's work. Today, I'm happy. Felipe Luiz is Flamengo. He just never stops, right? Let me tell you, he won yesterday, attended the press conference, and is coaching today. And man, let me tell you, I'm telling you all from the heart, I'm really happy with Felipe's work at Flamengo, guys. Really happy. He's going to make mistakes. It's normal. Coaches make mistakes. Every coach will make mistakes. Everyone will make mistakes. But man, the fans' patience will always be much greater with Felipe because he's Flamengo, right? The fact that Felipe is Flamengo changes everything, man. It changes everything. Maximum respect to Felipe Luiz. That's it. Please follow, like, and share on all platforms and subscribe on YouTube. Enable bell notifications and like the video. Thanks for your support. Greetings, black players. This is Flamengo. We're together.